And now it's time for Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie. School's in, bitches.
And welcome to Mob Talk Radio. I am your host, Jeff Canarsie, and we've got a big one today. Obviously, per the usual, we are going to do a big Q&A. We got a lot of different questions this week, and like I always say, and I get tired of saying it, but I can't get to every question, and sometimes things are just asked repeatedly every fucking week, and I just can't get to them. So I'm going to try to do my best to get through about 80 of them today, and we're also going to talk about the documentary that was released on Netflix July 21st called Fear City. I took to social media to kind of see what the reviews were, what other people thought, because obviously I'm going to have a little differing opinion, and I need to preface before I even go down this road of talking about the documentary is that I view things from a different perspective than most people. People who do not follow the mob genre probably loved it and thought it was a great documentary. But when you're involved in the genre like I am, you've been around the streets a little bit, you know some street people, you see things and you watch things a little differently. And most of the comments that I've seen, I've seen 2 or 3 that were good. People enjoyed it. But then I've seen 20 or 30 that just didn't like it for a lot of different reasons. And so I'm going to go into what my thoughts were of the documentary and break it down as I always do. But we have a lot of news and notes to get to today because there's a lot going on in the streets. There's a lot going on in Canada. A body was found in the woods, and it's directly sort of associated with Pat Musitano. And as we know, Pat Musitano was got killed. And so I got a lot of questions about Pat Musitano. So when we get to the news portion of this, which is coming here shortly, we'll sort of digest and go down a rabbit trail a little bit. Just sort of put parameters on what I think is going on. And it doesn't mean I'm right. It's just that sometimes when you talk about murder, anytime you talk about murder in the streets, it's not always clear cut. It's not always, this guy owed me or this guy was offensive to me, disrespected me. Sometimes it can be politics. Sometimes it could be money. Sometimes it could be an informant. There's a lot of different variables, and I'm going to try my best at least to bridge the gap. But like I said, we're going to do a Q&A. We're going to talk about Fear City, but I wanted to get to some things in the news because there's a lot going on. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the hit that took place here in New York in the Bronx last May. If you're not familiar with this, you can research Franciso Rosado gets killed in the Bronx. And the reason why I think a lot of people will know about this is just because of the fucking movie-like scene of 2 guys getting out of a fucking Jeep Cherokee and ski masks with silence-equipped pistols. That is not something you see every day in New York. It looked like something out of fucking a movie. It looked like a Scorsese flick. It's just one of those things that you don't often see hits. If you're a fan of Sons of Anarchy, that's the type of shit you would see in that show. But 3 people were arrested this week. When I covered the story back when this news broke, I thought that it was either an inside sort of job from the Pagans, or it was an outside job. Obviously, I'm not in that sort of circle, so I don't know a ton about bikers and stuff like that. But I do know enough to know that if 2 guys with silence-equipped pistols are going to get out of the car and blow somebody away in broad daylight, there's some heat. There's a problem. And so as this went along the last almost, over a year ago or whatever, there wasn't anything coming out. But I also thought because the Hells Angels Club had been shot up right after they opened up in the Bronx, that there could be some problems. And I think law enforcement thought there was going to be problems. And now we know, at least from, the law enforcement perspective, exactly what could have happened. Now, these are just allegations. Obviously, 3 people were arrested in this case. But like I said, until it gets to trial, court, more comes out, it's just one of those things. But obviously, if the police make an arrest, there's somebody talking, because you just don't put one and one together and make three. It just doesn't happen like that. So somebody has to be talking, at least from some sort of perspective. But anyway, the Hells Angels in the last 2 years had opened up a club in the Bronx, which typically was pagan territory. The Hells Angels have had a history of putting their mark wherever the fuck they want, and they don't care who likes it. And if you got a beef with them, then they're going to take it to the streets. They've always done that. That makes them one of the toughest 1%er clubs, just like the Pagans. The Pagans are a group that you don't want to fuck with, and they don't take no slack or no shit from nobody either. And I think historically, you can see the rub. There's the Hells Angels who say, here we are, we planted our flag, we are the most well-known biker club in the United States and in the fucking world. I mean, they have chapters in different countries. It's crazy. But at the same time, I think there has been other clubs, and this isn't disparaging about the Hells Angels. It's just a matter of fact that a lot of other clubs are sort of had the mind frame of who the fuck are you? Just because you got a large group, or just because you wave this flag means I got to be subservient to you. And one of the things that the Pagans have always done is sort of bit back. Obviously, we know that the shit that happened in Las Vegas years ago, where they just got into it in a casino and were shooting people up, and it was a crazy fucking scene. I think you could see it on YouTube. There's like videos of it. But in either case, authorities thought because the Hells Angels club had been shot up, I think it was in January, which was 1 month after they opened the club up, it was shot up a bunch of times. And law enforcement really kind of sort of held their balls because they thought, this is gonna open up a problem. This is typical pagan territory. The Hells Angels are moving in. They don't give a fuck. And so pretty much this hit was a sign of just there being an issue. So when the hit on Franciso Rosado first hit the news, in the photos, like I said earlier, 2 men with silenced-equipped pistols are shown getting out of a car, running in his direction. It really didn't take rocket science to understand that, like I said earlier, the murder was one of 2 competing scenarios, to be honest with you. Either it was a takeover from within, or it was sort of an outside kind of deal. And so what we have seen is an arrest that was made not a couple of days ago. 3 guys, I'm not going to mention their names, but 3 guys were arrested in connection with that murder. All 3 men are said to have been Hells Angels members. So that's sort of where we're at with that. I think the fact that at least alleged 3 Hells Angels members were arrested in the hit on a pagan leader in the Bronx, it's going to really cause some problems. And what really does make this intriguing now is, are the Pagans as a group going to sit back and allow that to happen, forget about it and move on, or are they going to react? And I think the heat that's going to be on them in the Bronx is going to be insane. But if history has proven one thing about situations like this, is that the Pagans, have long believed in eye for an eye. They're a 1%er group. If you don't know what a 1%er is, you can look it up for yourself. They don't fuck around. This is not the group. Neither group is a group you want to fuck around with. So the fact that Franciso Rosado was shot broad daylight in the Bronx, leading the Pagans chapter in the Bronx, it's going to create some problems. How long they're going to sit back and take that, I'm not really sure. This could have been, usually things come from the top down, just like organized crime. An order is given, it's handled. Now, does this mean that somebody from the Hells Angels ordered it and it got taken care of? Not necessarily. This could have been a beef over something else. But the point is that if you think this is going to end now, you're out of your fucking mind, because I don't think there's any way the Pagans are going to sit back and let this go on. I just don't think they will. It's not only do you have to do what's right by the streets, but you also have to do what's right by the code. And if we are going to follow that logic here, then I would assume that maybe not in the next couple months, but somebody's going to get killed over this. They're going to go to war. And I think that's what the law enforcement's perspective is. They're worried about it. How they even fucking came up with 3 guys who were involved in this, considering that it was 2 people who did the murder itself, is interesting to me. It tells me that somebody's talking, and that's going to create a bigger problem. But that's also at the same time going to probably be the levee to sort of simmer things down and calm things down, because if you don't know who's talking, the last thing you want to do is react, because if this person had enough information the fucking ratchet out to the cops to begin with, then the odds are if you retaliate, the cops already know who's running shit. The cops know who's the shot caller. The cops know who's manufacturing everything. So you got to be careful in a situation like this. So I imagine it's going to come at some point. But I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I mean, they may wait a month. They may wait a year. They may wait 5 years. But believe me, I don't think there's any way that this goes unchecked. I'm just being honest with you. All right, so that's that. Over in Italy, another fucking massive fucking arrest. The finance law enforcement department of Italy, along with Swiss law enforcement, arrested 75 suspected members of 'Ndrangheta in Italy and Switzerland. They charged 75 members with multiple crimes, including mafia association, international drug trafficking, money laundering, and corruption. Both government agencies also seized $180 million fucking dollars in a year-long investigation, which netted 83 other suspects in addition to the 75 they did arrest. So they arrested 75 people. Another 83 went on a list, and they're being currently investigated, but aren't under arrest at this point. So once again, we see Italy is using the money line to trace back to members in crimes. In the past, I think, 70s, 80s, New York had I don't want to say a partnership because that's probably the wrong terminology, but they had a friendly basis for trying to teach Italian authorities how to use the RICO law, because the RICO law ultimately is vast and expansive, and it allows you to essentially connect the dots. If you can connect the dots, you cannot just. So let me make this basic, because most people will understand what I'm talking about. But in this sort of situation, it's like this. If I order Johnny to go kill a guy, and Johnny goes to his guy and says, "I want you to kill him," it means that they can connect the dots between me, Johnny, and Johnny's guy. All right. In the old days, they couldn't do that. Usually it was if guy A shot guy B, guy A goes to jail. But if someone ordered today, the way it works is if somebody orders guy A to fucking do that, they're all getting arrested. It's just they show the connection in the dots, and it's just allowed the government to give you triple time for a crime. It allows the government to take everything you own. Just being suspected of organized crime using the RICO law, they can take everything, your house, your car. They don't have to give it back. Even if you're fucking proven to be fucking innocent or you get acquitted of your charges, they can still take your shit. And so that's why the RICO law itself should be fucking unconstitutional, in my opinion. But Italy at the time was trying to find ways of getting the mafia. Okay, and so Giuliani, I think it was Giuliani, actually had a lot of contacts in Italy, that being Giovanni Falcone, and they were trying to utilize the system to use RICO. Ultimately, Giovanni Falcone, we know what happened to him. He got blown up in the roadside bomb in Italy. It killed him because the mob wasn't fucking around there. And so what Italy has done was, rather than use the RICO law, what they've now done is they used really two forms of equalizing the playing field. The first one is they follow the money. I don't know why the American FBI hasn't used this system. And I think a lot of it's because American gangsters hide money probably a little bit better than they do in Italy. I could be wrong. But what they've done is they follow the money. If they can follow the money and they can seize the money, then it almost forces these guys to come out into the fucking public eye and do something to get the money back. Just taking a guy off the streets, it doesn't matter. You take a guy A off the fucking streets, guy B is going to step right in. It's a power vacuum, and that's what happens, right? So if you take the motherfucker's money, now you're really creating a problem, because money is the root of everything in organized crime. It always has been, always will be. It's not like Tommy Patera says, I joined the mafia because I want to just kill people. That's not the bottom line. The bottom line is fucking money. Murder, mayhem, that all comes with it to protect your money. That's the bottom line. You're not, you may see a guy kill a guy because he doesn't like a fucking guy because he's a fucking prick. But the ultimate sort of disrespect is when you fuck with the guy's money. Okay, so in Italy, they've been following the money, and if they can seize the money, they seem to think that that's what works, and it has been working in Italy. The other thing that they are doing is they're taking the kids of these mob guys. They say, all right, you want to be in a mafia? All right, we're going to take your kids and we're going to put them into fucking foster care because you are a bad person, a criminal, and you don't have the right to have a child while you're behaving in this manner. And that's the other thing that's worked for Italian police. So obviously they're continuing to go down the line of taking the money, seizing the money. $180 million is no fucking joke. I mean, maybe that's small money to you, but to me, that's like, what the fuck? So if they can take the money and arrest people, then you're cutting their supply off, because then they're going to really have to do something to get money. And then ultimately they get a little more brazen. And that's what seems to be working in Italy. But one thing that Italy has done, at least from a gangster perspective, is they're putting money in legit companies like hospitals, fucking funeral homes, fucking food distribution. And so the Italian police are never going to fucking eradicate the mob in Italy. It's never going to happen. It's just too big. But if they can take out 80 at a fucking time by following the money, because the money connects to this guy, who connects to this guy, who connects to that guy, then that's what they're going to do. And that's pretty much what has happened over there. And obviously it's still going on. And we'll see how that, happens and how that works out down the line. All right, so the last part of the news that we're going to talk about is obviously Pat Musitano a little bit. And I don't want to get into a rabbit trail of talking about Pat Musitano, but here we go. So there was a guy by the name of Norton. He was 59 years old. He was essentially a guy who was very closely associated with Pat Musitano. He was the sort of the front guy for a lot of different corporations. I think it was the Havana Corporation, the Havana Company, something like that. He had been indicted back in March for fraud and theft and a bunch of other things, and he just sort of, was dodging the case. On July 12th, his family reports him missing. He was previously seen, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 days earlier, and his body gets discovered on July 19th. Obviously, we know that Pat Musitano got gunned down on July 10th outside of a furniture store in a parking lot. And it's alleged, it has been alleged by the RCMP that Pat Musitano was getting kickbacks from the Havana Construction Supplies. And Havana Construction Supplies was run by Norton. And they were just getting kickbacks from like soil, mulch, and just different stuff like that. And so more or less, his body gets found 9 days after Musitano gets killed. And that's a little strange. It's a little strange. I don't know how much the two have in common. But what I can tell you is that I'm not surprised. Obviously, it's been a week or so since we did our last show. And obviously, we know that someone who was very close to Musitano, their family had the word rat painted on the garage. I talked about that over on Mob Talk Radio. If you go on Facebook and type in Mob Talk Radio, you can pull that up. But here's the thing with somebody spray painting rat and torching cars outside of somebody's home, is the fact that we don't know technically if this is inside or outside. I still think it's an outside job. The mere fact that the person whose house sort of was vandalized was with Pat Musitano when he got killed, it opens up some eyes. And the reason why, without going down a rabbit trail, because I wrote a huge article about it, and posted it on our site on Mob Talk Radio on Facebook, and you can read that article there for more information. But the one thing that I think is strange is Pat Musitano was a very sort of gregarious guy. He was out in the public a lot, but since they had tried to kill him, and they had actually killed his fucking brother, he sort of kind of just stopped going out to big fancy places. He had his car armor plated, the glass was bulletproof, so he knew that they were going to try to kill him. And so this was a guy that typically would not necessarily lay low, but the fact that he's hit in a fucking shopping center parking lot leads a lot of people to suspect that somebody tipped off the shooters of where he was going to be. And that's likely why you get the word rat put on the guy's house, because people are taking aim. Now, could that mean that this was an outside thing? Sure. Could it mean it was an inside thing? Yeah, absolutely. Because if somebody within the crime family itself is close to Pat, and this guy is obviously with Pat, he doesn't get shot and killed, but Pat does. He survives everything, being relatively unscathed. And Canada has this way of just fucking whacking everybody. They just don't kill one and let others live. They kill fucking everybody, because they don't want eyes on it. They don't want they don't want a victim to live. They don't want an eye fucking witness to anything. So at the end of the day, with this is that if logically anybody is going to take over the Musitano crime family, it's going to be the guy that lived. He was very tight with Pat, had a lot of businesses together, and he would be the next logical successor. But if there's somebody in that family that wanted to take over, that's a good way of getting this guy out of the way. Oh, he's a rat. He's a rat. He gave up Pat. So it's a scheming thing. And that's what sort of leads me to believe that this is deeper and a little bigger than I can sort of wrap my fucking brain around, because I honestly thought when all of this started that it was Andromeda. They did it. They want to take over. They want him out of the way. And it wouldn't surprise me if somebody from Andromeda put Rat just to throw caution to the wind and shoot the investigation in another direction. The problem is I just don't know. When I try to think of the streets and how things operate, and nothing about this, the murder itself makes complete sense. Okay, if we go back historically and talk about everything that Pat Musitano did and how he sort of inflamed a lot of people, then that hit makes sense. But the rat thing on the fucking garage is what throws me off. If I throw that out of the way, then everything makes sense. It's Andromeda. They wanted him gone. They were trying to kill him for a long time. They finally got it. Now they're going to try to absorb everything he had. That makes sense. But when you add the vandalism to the guy's house, who was a relative, and you get Rat, and then his cars are torched, that's a fucking message. Albeit, we can look at that message several different ways. It could be an insight thing of, hey, he's a fucking rat, you piece of shit, you gave up Pat Musitano, now look what happened, you fucking scumbag. It could simply mean that. Or it could be the reverse, and it came from within, and somebody did that to throw the investigation a different direction. It could be that. But something tells me that there's something more going on, and with the murder of Norton, that could be, once again, that could be an inside thing of somebody saying, no, fuck you, you didn't pay us, you're ducking and dodging us with money, so you're gone too. So when you take the totality of everything that's been going on there in the last, two fucking weeks, it sounds to me, and this is what I personally think, I think Andromeda probably did it. They got rid of Pat, and I think that what you're having going on now is you're having sort of an internal thing going on with the Musitano crime family of who's going to take over, what are we going to do, and maybe they reach out and a preemptive strike to kill Norton to send a signal. I don't think that's an Andromeda move. That sounds like an inside Musitano move. And so if we take it that direction, because this guy was seen 6 days earlier, so he would have been killed before Pat Musitano. So you can't even specifically say that maybe Pat Musitano didn't have him killed. I mean, that's a whole nother option that we can sort of talk about. Maybe Musitano has him killed. Somebody that's attached to Norton gets pissed and kills Musitano in sort of a reaction. So I don't know. There's different ways we can play it, but I think the reality is, and maybe I didn't even think about that, but maybe it's more of an inside thing than we ever thought. When you connect Norton to Musitano, Norton's killed before Musitano, maybe Musitano had it done, and then there was a reaction from inside the family to go after Pat because of that. It could entirely be that. It can entirely be that, and that would make sense. But I just don't think that's. I think this is sort of an Andromeda move, and I think there were other things going on. But believe me, Norton gets killed over money. It has nothing to do with ratting or nothing like that. This is over money. So I don't know. You guys can call. You guys can message me on Facebook. Let me know what you think. Do you think when you associate Musitano, the fact that Norton was killed before Musitano and they were very tight, was that a move by Musitano on Norton? And then as a reaction, someone else gets involved and takes out Musitano. That could entirely be it. But this guy was a boss. So I still have a tendency of believing this was an Andromeda move. They can be responsible for all of it. They really could. I'm not saying they're not. So it's wild, wild fucking west over there. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Are you going to see a retaliation? Yeah, I think you will. But I think if you do not see a retaliation by the Musitano crime family, it's going to tell me that it was an inside job. Totally, 100%. Because the way history always repeats itself, right? Like there's fucking algorithms and there's a structure of how everything goes, and it often does not fucking deviate whatsoever, especially in Canada. And they've been eye for an eye, shooting for a shooting. So if you don't see nothing in the next couple of weeks, and take the Norton thing off the table because he was killed before Musitano, if nothing is done and there's not some random fucking shooting, then that's going to give you the clue that likely it came from within. And if you were smart, and you wanted to throw caution to the wind and you wanted to shoot the investigation the other way, pick an enemy and blow his fucking head off from the other side. Then it looks like there's a war brewing, and that's enough. It's going to get the Fed's attention, the RCMP's attention, but at the same time, if you want to throw caution to the wind and you want to mix up the investigation and shoot it in a million different directions, then that's what you do. First of all, killing an enemy is not a big deal if you hate the motherfuckers anyway, and it shoots it the other direction. But like I said, if you don't see anything, that's going to tell me it's more of an internal issue, because the way that even the Rizzutos, the Lupinos, the Catronis, they've always done the same thing. Andrangheta, they always do the same thing, eye for an eye, tit for tat, and stuff like that. But if there's no retaliation, no reaction to this, then that's going to sort of put me in the position to believe that this is likely an internal family bullshit. And the only people who are going to fucking benefit of that is going to be Andrangheta and other crime families. They're going to be the ones who are going to benefit from that. So, maybe from the Andrangheta perspective, if they had nothing to do with this, it's good news for them. They got a fucking asshole they didn't like out of the way. And it's one less fucking burden that they got to deal with. So, like I said, we're going to see how this plays out the next couple of weeks. But like I said, and I'm putting my fucking money where my mouth is, if nothing is done, if there is no retaliation in the next 6 weeks, that's going to tell me that this is a Musitano issue and not an Andrangheta being involved issue. So there you have it. That's all the news and notes that we have for this week. I'm going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to get into the Q&A. So stay tuned on Mob Talk Radio. A lot of fun on this show, but it's time to get serious about one thing. I know that the coronavirus pandemic has hurt a lot of my listeners and their businesses. Restaurants have been ordered to close, gyms have been ordered to close, cigar lounges have been ordered to close, and even bars have been ordered to close. These are small businesses that don't always have the cash reserves to continue making their rent or mortgage payments. They can't even pay their vendors. My good friend Mike Kaysen of Kaysen & Kaysen is an experienced bankruptcy lawyer that is there to help you right now. Kaysen & Kaysen represents individuals and small businesses in complex bankruptcy proceedings in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and Miami. Give Mike a call at 646-397-6226. And if you mention Mob Talk Radio, he's going to give you a free consultation. Once again, it's Mike Kaysen of Kaysen & Kaysen, 646-397-6226. On a given week, I'm out of town a lot. Whether it's Philadelphia, it's New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, wherever the case may be, I'm always looking for a place where I can sit down and have a great dinner. Ambiance is key, price is obviously key, but the most important thing is the food good? And there's a place I want to tell you about today. It's called Saltwater at Margate. If you are going down to the shore, because I know a lot of people in Philadelphia go to the shore, especially Margate, you're missing out on a great restaurant if you haven't been there. The name is Saltwater Margate. It's at 9401 Ventnor Avenue, Margate City, New Jersey. The phone number there is 609-289-8078. You can also visit them online at saltwatermargate.com. This place is unbelievable. Not only is the food absolutely superb, the price is great too. They're renowned for their pizza and their gnocchi. They have all kinds of different things from mussels to roast pork and Italian fare. So do yourself a favor, do me a favor, go and visit Saltwater Margate. You will not be disappointed. It is a place that I think at some point, if not already, there's going to be lines out the door and around the block. So if you're down on the shore, stop in, go to Saltwater Margate. At least check them out online at saltwatermargate.com. And welcome back to Mob Talk Radio. We are going to get into the Q&A, and per the usual, if I don't get to your question, it's not because it's a dumb question, it's just because I've either done it a million times before, or the fact that it's just too in-depth for me to get into. Like I said, a lot of the questions I get are recycled, phrased different ways, and so we are going to do a show moving forward at some point with a lot of recycled questions. And so that's pretty much it as far as that goes. So I'm going to get right into the Q&A. All right, I have read that one of the original Three Stooges, Ted Healy, I believe was his name, was beaten to death by an associate of Lucky Luciano. Is there any truth to this? Thank you. Yeah, actually, that is certifiably 100% true. There was a situation. I got a couple Three Stooges questions this week, believe it or not. But he was beaten to death by Pat Musitano, who basically was the hammer for MGM Studios and Lucky Luciano. He handled a lot of problems for them. Healy was, by nature, just an absolute atrocious fucking drunk. He was running around town insulting a lot of people, created a lot of fucking problems, and he ends up having an affair with a Hollywood actress by the name of Thelma Todd, who at the time was married to Pat Musitano. So that's sort of a problem there. But strangely, Thelma Todd died in 1935, and it was ruled a suicide, but it was widely considered by a lot of people to be the handiwork of Musitano. And so what ended up happening and what led to Healy getting beat to death was Healy walked into a bar where Musitano and character actor Wallace Beery were drinking. They were drinking, carousing, having a good time. Beery himself was a notorious drunk, a notorious shit disturber. And Healy and Beery end up getting into an argument, and Healy offers to whip Beery's ass out in the parking lot. Beery goes outside, but he brings along Musitano with him, and they basically essentially beat him to death. That's the truth, and that's sort of what happened. Ted Healy was a monster shithead, at least from the historical reference, but there you have it. All right. Were commission meetings and decisions in the 60s and 70s. Hold on, I just lost my place. This never fucking happens to me. 1 second. Let me just fix this here. Oh, God. All right. Were commission meetings and decisions in the 60s and 70s just made up of New York City bosses only? For instance, we never hear of Carlo Gambino being connected to the JFK assassination like other bosses were. Can you explain how the heads of the commission changed over the years, since it seems we keep hearing it was just New York City bosses that made up the commission? Weren't bosses from other cities a part of the commission as well? Yes and no. The commission in New York City is the commission in general is the five heads of the New York families. Everything sort of past that sort of branches off. The New York commission has the final say on a lot of things. However, other bosses did sit on the commission, such as Russell Bufalino, Ray Patriarca, Carlos Marcello, and a lot of other people. Russell Bufalino, I said him already, but with the changing time periods, things change. Pre-Kennedy, the mob had met, but as far as who had a say in things and opinions were always welcome. But ultimately the New York Commission had the final say on what was going on. It was a little different during the Kennedy days, and it also depended on what the issues were at the time. I mean, during the days of Kennedy, there's a lot of things to win, and there were a lot of things to lose. These days, it's a little bit different, and so I think after Kennedy, especially with the way Kennedy's life ended, a lot of things changed. But in the pre-early days, like Luciano, when he would bring in, like the Atlantic City Conference, that was a changing in structure of organized crime. And so guys like Ray Patriarca, Russell Bufalino, Carlos Marcello, they would have a lot of say in things, but ultimately it was the opinions of other people that they wanted. But as far as who had the final say on things, it's always been New York. It's always going to be New York. That's never, ever going to change. All right. Instead of the usual who was the greatest, fill in the blank, let's do something that's unexpected and a curveball. In your estimation, who was the most imaginative visionary of the mob genre, and why? We have a sinking suspicion amounting to almost certainly it'll be Lucky Luciano, right? I don't think that Lucky Luciano did anything that was miraculous, believe it or not. He's the godfather of American organized crime. But the ideas of the commission itself, which is what Luciano is widely responsible for being sort of the orchestrator of, that idea had been tossed around for a long time. It wasn't Luciano's idea. It had been around for a while, but nobody had really the power or the intelligence to make that work functionally without there being problems. Luciano essentially took the idea and he makes it work. He transfers the Mafia, or he transformed the Mafia into what it became and what it is. As far as a visionary, you really truly have to look at the guys who got into construction. Tony Salerno, Paul Castellano, Tony Dux Carallo, Vinny Gigante. These are guys who took a simple way of taking construction, coming together, and controlling the entire fucking skyline of New York City. Listen, gambling, extortion, it doesn't take a college degree to fucking do that. But to control an entire industry through the unions and the corporations, it takes serious vision. If you look at something like the gas tax scam, which Gas Pipe Casso is the one who made that work, not Michael Francis. He would have you believe it was him, but it wasn't. It was actually a Russian gangster who had the idea, and Gas Pipe Casso is the one who took it, put it to work, and made it what it was. And then Francis tries to fucking basically shake down people until he realizes that Gas Pipe is the one behind it. They end up splitting the rackets, but Gas Pipe took it from a hole in the wall to a major fucking industry. So from my perspective, we could pick 100 different guys, but for my money, I think that Carlo Gambino was at the top. And this is why I say that. Not only did he control unions, and all mob families controlled unions, but Carlo Gambino recognized that controlling the ports on the eastern seaboard was where they were going to get their money. If they could control the influx of what was coming in, what was coming out, then they truly had ultimate power. The fact that he controlled all of the longshoresmen and controlled the entire eastern seaboard, that's just something that I don't think that... not to say that Luciano didn't have that power, because in many instances they were controlling the docks then, and controlling the docks went all the way back to like the fucking early 1900s. But the way that Carlo Gambino did it, for instance, if he could make one call and shut the whole entire seaport down, if that's what he wanted to do. When you control the ebb and flow of imports and exports, I mean, just things that people need, you control the fucking country. That is fucking inventive. That's visionary shit. Gambino often doesn't get credited for that sort of thing, and a lot of that's because the docks were always controlled, but not in the way that Carlo Gambino took it. He took it and turned it into something different, and Carlo Gambino was a guy who didn't have to utter a fucking word. He sits there, he smiles, he smirks, he nods. That's true power, and I think as far as... that I think Carlo was the biggest visionary as far as that goes. All right. I'm very interested in where this Canadian turf war is going to go, and will it cross over to the United States? Are other families interested in this area too? Buffalo obviously is going to play a part in certain things because at one point, and this is recently, the boss of the Buffalo crime family was actually Canadian. I don't think that that's ever happened before. I think that that's something we've never seen. I don't think that they've ever had a guy in control of a mob family who is technically from another country and living in another country. I don't think the American side of things matter much to this because really Buffalo has always, and even Detroit to some extent, Buffalo and Detroit have always been the two places where illegal liquor came from. Like when it would come over from overseas, like Ireland, Scotland, fucking Canada. It would come in like Canadian whiskey, et cetera, Canadian mist, whatever the fuck it is. It would come through Canada into those ports. And so Buffalo was always a hub, as was Detroit, for drugs, for narcotics, and fucking booze. And so transversely, the American cigarette companies, like the bootleg cigarettes, they go from the United States into Canada the same direction. So from that perspective, Buffalo is very, very important. And the fact that you had at one point a Canadian, essentially a Canadian guy running the Buffalo crime family, it's not tradition. It was always the Bonanos who traditionally had their hands in Canada with the Rizzutos, but they lost that decades ago when Joe Bonanno gets chased from the mob. This is a war between bikers and Drangheta and Sicilian Cosa Nostra. Now, Dominic Violi, and that's the guy that I'm talking about, he was actually named boss of the Todaro crime family in Buffalo, and he was the guy in Canada controlling things, and he ends up going to the can, and then so logically, there's sort of a shift. Now, I don't know if he's still running things or obviously he's not going to be active being in prison, but Joe, according to sources, Joe Todaro Jr. took over the acting role and is the boss currently. So there's sort of a jockeying type of position going on in Ontario, and it's not just with Drangheta, but with the Rizzutos, the Musitanos, in Buffalo, there's not one that really stands out. I mean, if I was a betting man and I was going to put my money on somebody, I'm going to put it on Drangheta. Calabrian Mafia is tough. They're not fucking around. They've been taking it to everybody's ass for fucking 20 some fucking years. I don't see that stopping. And according to my sources anyway, It was Buffalo who got involved with the attempted hit on Pat Musitano years ago. So those are just rumors. I mean, I can't confirm that, obviously, with you guys, but if they reached out to Buffalo to handle business in Canada, I mean, it makes sense. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think it spills over to the United States. I don't think the United States guys are going to get involved in it. I hate to use Nicky Scarfo as a fucking reference, but when Nicky Scarfo started chopping heads in South Philadelphia, New York bosses were not going to get involved. They had their own problems. They had their own indictments, their own set of issues. And the last thing they want to do is put a target on their back getting involved with a fucking guy like Nicky. So I think it's sort of the same situation here. I think as long as the money on the border is still coming in, the products are coming in, and they're still doing business, everything's fine. But I think you're going to see a move by Andrangeta to really fucking take Hamilton as their own. And I think that's what's happening right now, to be honest with you. All right. On the new platform, you will be taking call-ins. At least that's what you said. Should any mob guys want to call in and talk to you, will you take their calls? Does federal law allow prisoners, i.e. Mafia guys, to make calls to your show? If so, providing that anyone would want to use that call to talk to you on your show, wouldn't it be cool if all those boxes can be ticked and that would happen? I would love to hear from Tommy Patera or someone of that caliber on your show. Here's how I can answer this. Right now, like I've said before, I'm sort of in the middle of I don't want to say negotiation because that's a bad fucking term, but I am talking with I said it earlier, a major platform. And sometimes things happen and, you got to take a week here to figure something out or a week there. It's still going to happen as far as I know. It's just, sometimes things take time to work out, legally speaking, and sometimes, people have things going on in their life. Not me, maybe the other party does, and you just have to sort of be patient and wait it out. As far as taking call-ins, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do this. I think probably what we will do is we will have something on YouTube, a live show on YouTube, which will be a private thing, so it'll be one of these things where you people get the link and you just jump in and we'll do it that way. But as far as, yeah, can somebody like Tommy Patera call in? Yeah, sure. But he's not going to do that. And the thing is like, I don't think that it's a good idea for anybody to do that with me. And I say that not because I wouldn't talk to them. I talk to a lot of different people. I just think that they're going to put themselves in a situation they're going to regret later on. You know what I mean? A lot of big name people trust me and they know I got good intentions. And I just think, could I get people like that? Absolutely, certifiably. See, the difference between me and a lot of other people is they only interview fucking rats. That's all they do because that's all they can get. Can I get somebody that's maybe active? Yeah, sure, I could. But I don't. I have enough respect for them and I have enough loyalty to them to not put them in that position ever. Because, yeah, you could have a guy on and talk about cigars, sports, whatever the case may be. But the minute you do that, you put a target on your head because the feds are going to be listening in. And it creates more drama and more bullshit than it needs to be. I also, and to be perfectly, clear and concise about it. I have big names and big name informants, people you would never think that were very, very big people at one point in their lives in the Mafia. And we're not talking about the typical informants that you see now. We're talking about people that could have been bosses, could have been high-end fucking people that don't talk publicly about anything, reach out to me. And they always, and they sometimes want to reach out and sort of tell their story. But I don't often respond to any of them. One or two that I might have responded to is just something I'm not going to do. I'm not interested in it. There is a platform that they can go to. They can do the Bet David show if they want to do it, get the 75 large. I'm just not going to do it. It just doesn't interest me. The history of it interests me, but they lose me the minute that they say, well, I just didn't want to do prison time. At that point, I got nothing to say to them. There's people that are in prison can call in, but like I said, it's not worth them taking the heat. It's not worth the bullshit that it's going to happen. Because believe me, if I wanted to go the route of everybody else and put every fucking rat known to fucking man on my show, I would kill all of these fucking platforms. Because the people that have contacted me, the people that wanted to talk to me, would fucking shock you. But at the same time, it's just not something I do. Would I get more hits or more notoriety doing that? Sure. But I don't do what everybody else does. I respect myself. I respect my friends, and I'm not going to disrespect myself or my friends by putting somebody like that on a platform and giving them 5 minutes of my time. Have I done it in the past? Absolutely, because that's what the haters are going to say this week. Oh, he's denying he ever. Of course I did. When I first started out, that's what I did. But it didn't last but a couple months, and that was the end of it. And I did it because I needed to start. I had to start fucking somewhere. And that's what I did. And as my show grew, I said, you know what, I don't need to do this. So there you go. So for anybody that's going to say, oh, he's not admitting to this, there you go. I just admitted to it. So there you go. Have your fucking popcorn, stick the cactus up your ass, and bark at the fucking moon with the fucking yak woman. I don't give a fuck. But there's some other things, too, that a lot of people don't know. And I'm just going to put it this way. My show is listened to in prison by a lot of different people. I get contacted from people saying your show's playing in prisons. Guys love this. It's in social clubs. They love it. And that's okay. People love it. People hate it. But I actually recently just found out that I got banned in Finland, a country I've never fucking been to, a country I got no fucking desire to ever fucking visit, Helsinki, whatever the fuck it's called. I'll drink their fucking vodka. But yeah, I've been banned in Finland. I can't tell you who told me, but it's somebody that has a reputation. It's somebody that would know. But my show is banned in prisons in Finland because apparently there was a prison rat who ran to prison officials over there saying that I was filtering messages to mob guys in Europe by doing my show, which is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. Because one, I don't know anybody in prison in Finland. That's for starters. Two, what secret fucking... I want somebody who listens to my show to come to me and say, oh yeah, remember that time you said something and finished and told the guy where to hide the fucking shank and where to stab the hack? I mean, come on, for Christ's sakes. I don't know these people, but I've been banned in Finland. If anybody is caught listening to my material in Finland, they get extra time. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. And I've never in my life... I don't know anybody. I know one person. Well, I know people in Italy. I got family in Italy. And I do have friends in Finland, but they're people that like I'm not close to, like normal, everyday, like lawyers, doctors, shit like that. But listen, my show is listened to in prison. I already know that. I heard guys are getting MP3 players with my show on it. That's what I hear, but I don't know. I'm not there, so I don't know how they're getting it, but they're getting it. And I get a lot of feedback from a lot of serious people that you would probably never suspect contact me. But to have them on my show would just create a ton of havoc for them, a ton of havoc for myself. I don't like the fucking feds. They don't fucking like me. I think that's fucking obvious. And I just don't want to put nobody in a jam. I could give a fuck about myself, but I'm not putting anybody else in a jam. All right. Hey, Jeff, another great show last week. Hope you and your family stay safe and healthy. With Michigan being on the border with Canada, does that mean that the Detroit family has a crew or business dealings in Canada? If they do, what cities do they operate in? Look, Detroit going back historically has always had ties to Canada, especially during Prohibition. You also had the Purple Gang, which was organized crime. They didn't necessarily get along with the Mafia, but they were widely responsible for getting booze into the country through Canada. Hamilton, Toronto, typically have been the area Detroit has had some business in, but for some reason Buffalo has sort of been the one arm of the Canadian mob that's always existed. And I'm not knocking Detroit, but back in those days, it was Joe Bonanno and Carmine Galante who controlled Canada, along with the Rizzutos and the Catronis. But after Bonanno's sort of the Bonanno crime family split with the Rizzutos over some interesting things which we've talked about on this show before, Canada sort of becomes its own entity. You'd think with Detroit's proximity to Ontario that would, make for a better sort of pairing for Canada, but it's always really been Buffalo. For a long time, Detroit had a small fringe group based in Windsor, Ontario, which enabled them to move heroin into the U.S., but it's mainly been Buffalo. All right. Let's say you're a captain in a family and you find out that there has been a hit placed on you by a higher-ranking member. Would it then be justified for you to take action into your own hands and take out a higher-ranked member with the right backing, or would you be whacked for doing it? Well, look, if it's a higher-ranking member, then that means it's an underboss or a boss, right? I mean, at that point, you're not going to find out that there's a hit on you. You're just going to get killed. I mean, that's the bottom line. Now, If you're talking about a situation where you're a captain and somebody else is a captain, but that captain is sort of more respected, has a little more power, and is seen in a better light than you, then then you have to understand if a hit has been green lit, it's going to become a shoot or be shot sort of situation. And so my opinion, and this is just me, and this is going to cause some of my friends to go, "You're a fucking nut," but I don't care if I'm an associate. I don't care if I'm a captain. The way that I sort of live my life, and I always have, and this is going to be an unpopular sort of opinion, but if somebody's going around saying they're going to shoot me, they better pick out a nice suit, because I'm killing them without a second thought. Guys talk, but somebody who's ballsy enough to say to anybody else that they're going to shoot me, first of all, is likely not going to shoot me. They don't tell you they're going to shoot you, they just do. But if somebody's stupid enough to go around saying that, then they're going to get killed immediately. Whether that's justified in the streets or not, I don't give a fuck. You do not become a lamb driven to the slaughter. And that's just the bottom line and how I feel about things. But there is a hierarchy to everything. I would like to hope in a situation like that smarter heads are going to prevail and people are going to sit down and talk about it. But if it becomes a situation where I'm this and you're this and our standing is equal, if you're going to be stupid enough to tell people you're going to kill me and I hear about it and it's verifiable, I'm going to kill you. Like, at that point, I don't give a fuck. I mean, you can even take the mob out of it. If your neighbor says he's going to kill you and you have a suspicion that he actually might do it, wouldn't you rather kill him first than to ever give him a fucking opportunity to gain an inch on you? Like, so, I mean, I understand the question. I like the question. It's a good question. But from my perspective, and I'm a fucking nut, I'm the first to tell you, if somebody's going to be stupid enough to put it in somebody's ear that they're going to kill me, and if they ain't got the balls to do it, then I'm going to do it for them. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. All right. In your opinion, per your article, what options does Pino Avanone have now? And Pino was the relative of Pat Musitano who had the rat thing put on his garage. Will he jump to Andromeda if he gave Pat Musitano up? If he did inform, will Andromeda protect him? Do guys portray the Canadian Mafia in that way up there? Typically, they do not. Typically, they don't operate that way. He is not going to have options to get into Andromeda whatsoever. If Pino did set him up, he's going to try to take over the Musitano crime family. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I don't even think that if I look deep down, I don't think that Pino, and I know we played this scenario earlier in the show and last week, but I don't think he really informed. I think that's number one. I think somebody, like I said, it goes back to did somebody in the Musitano crime family set Pat up, or did this come from the outside? I just don't know. Like I said, it could be a deflection too. But I think because of the heat, if he should lay low either way, lay low. Unless it comes out that he was talking, then just laying low is a smart thing in this position. I mean, you wouldn't see my face, I can tell you that much. Otherwise, I think, Pino is probably in a position to take over, and that's going to be very, very telling. And like I said earlier, it's going to depend on how the Musitanos react at this point. If they don't react, it's inside. If they do react, then that tells you it came from somewhere else. The Musitanos got to hit back. They got no other choice. You have to. It sounds childish and it sounds stupid, but in the streets, an eye for an eye. That's what you have to do. You have to make a fucking statement. And so if Pino doesn't take over the crime family, or if Pino doesn't, if he had nothing to do with it, then you're going to see him take over that crime family. If he doesn't and it's silent, that tells you something different. All right, if Sam Giancana and Joey Doves Ayupa were fronting for Accardo, was Accardo in turn fronting for Paul Rica? If so, was Chicago the only organization that employed this type of three-tiered command structure? I think you'd be right. Listen, using a front boss is one thing, but Chicago definitely was very, very smart in how they conducted things. You sort of have to throw Sam Giancana the fuck out of there, throw Joe Doves out of there, and just sit back and just kind of watch and see what happens in that situation. It's essentially a four-man structure. They knew that they were feeding Joe Doves and Giancana to the wolves, essentially. But I don't think that they expected Sam Giancana to be that as loose as he ended up becoming. with Giancana's nonsense, he took a lot of heat off of them, but then at the same time, he brings way too much heat, which is exactly why they sent Tony Spilatro to whack him. I've always believed that it was Tony Spilatro who did it. Giancana and Spilatro were very, very tight friends, and it was Sam who argued that Tony Spilatro should be sent out to Las Vegas to begin with. He loved Tony Spilatro from everything I've heard. I don't buy anything that asshole Frank Collada says. He's a fucking rat and a nothing. I think he's got way too much oxygen going up his fucking nose. But at the end of the day, I just think that it was set up in a way that, okay, this is a front boss, and it insulated themselves. And I think anybody that does that is fairly smart. The minute that the press knows what's going on, that's a big problem. Nobody should know what's going on, All right. The Gemini twins were very close, almost like a couple. Have they had any contact since their prison sentence? To my knowledge, yeah. They did. They were sending messages back and forth through other people for the first couple of years of their incarceration, but obviously, they haven't seen each other in decades. I have not talked to Anthony Center in over a decade, so I couldn't really certifiably tell you what was going on in that situation, but I think it's enough. The guys communicate in prison, absolutely. All right, what members today would they make a movie about, and who would play Joey Merlino? By the way, can we get a Ron Previty? You guys love this Ron Previty shit. I'm not tired of doing it. I can't think of anything funnier than fucking Jabba the Hutt and Ron Previty having a two-way with a fucking jar of Vaseline while they're eating chicken wings. Ron Previty, oh Jabba, give it to me good. Give it to me good like Ralphie Natale. Fuck, I'm demented. I'd like to see a film about Russell Buffalino that really shows the political side of things. Not that Joe Pesci didn't do a good job; he was fantastic. But I could deal with a Russell Buffalino film, a complete one with that subject. I would love to see a film about Tony Salerno, Vincent Gigante, Carlos Marcello. But perhaps the one I'd love to see a real film about is Carlo Gambino. As far as Joey Merlino goes. Some of us joke, that Michael Imperioli should have played Joey Merlino. If there was ever should a film like that ever fucking exist. But I don't think that that's a film you're going to see. But if I was to do it my way, I would do a 30-year period where it opens where Bruno gets hit, and then you take it up to today's time period. How everything transpired from Bruno to Testa to Scarfa, then Stanfa versus Merlino. I mean, that shit's insane. And maybe I'm not confirming this, but maybe there's something in the works that nobody knows about, but I'm keeping my mouth shut about it. Maybe there is something in the works. So I'm just going to leave that there. All right. Why doesn't the American Mafia kill and use violence anymore? How do they instill fear if they don't use murder and violence? They still use violence when it calls, but the problem, at least specifically here in New York, is that there's cameras in every fucking corner. You just can't get away with it. I mean, we have gunshot fucking detectors on the top of buildings, so if somebody fires a weapon, everybody's phone goes off saying gunshot detected. Guys still clobber guys when it calls for it, but you aren't seeing the murders, I think, because the money isn't obviously as big as it once was. Guys want to just sort of stay off the radar. It's all about money. Keep the money coming in. More money, no problems. Well, it's always more money, more problems, but in the case of the New York Mafia, they just want to make their money be left alone. I'm sure on a given week, a few guys want to kill a guy over a beef over an issue. But there is a time and a place, and just because we aren't seeing bodies hit the floor doesn't mean that somebody isn't disappearing. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that nobody knows about. And I think, too, that the Mafia is and concerned, and they should be, with just make your fucking money, don't make headlines, and just keep an eye on what the feds are doing. Times are different, but believe me, the first dumb fuck that robs a guy over serious money is going to get killed. In other cities, like Philadelphia and Chicago, they will, under all my beliefs, will kill a motherfucker without any hesitation if you step sideways. There's a big difference. New York's a busy area. There's cameras everywhere. It's a humongous area, tons of rackets, tons of different things and different ways you can do things. But in a smaller city, everything is compacted, and it's an eat or be eaten, dog or eat dog kind of style of living. The smart ones have journeyed out into other areas, into other states. Look, a man who puts his fish all in one basket is sure to stink up a whole block. A man who uses 20 baskets in 20 different areas doesn't. Always remember that. And I'll repeat that. A man who puts his fish all in one basket is sure to stink up the block. A man who uses 20 baskets in 20 different areas doesn't. Always, always, always remember that. The smart guys move outside their area. You do not shit where you eat. You follow that logic, you'll be fine. All right, have you watched 000 on Amazon from the creators of Gomorrah, which involves Andromeda and the Mexican cartels? No, haven't watched it. Haven't watched it at all. Have you seen any of the Johnny and Gene show podcast? I have. It's garbage. It's nonsense. It's lies. It's atrocious. The end. Moving on. Who is responsible for whacking Harry Petros, who worked for and with Harry Riccobene? Nicky Scarfo. I think anybody who worked for Harry during the time of Scarfo can be directly sort of attributed to Nicky Scarfo, especially when you consider that Boris and Petros were protected under Bruno, but not so much the case under Nicky Scarfo. Nicky Scarfo wanted complete control of organized crime in Philly. He wanted a kickback from everybody, including the Greek Mafia. It's long been said at the time that the Greek mob was infighting over coke distribution in downtown Philly. I can't be 100% about that. That's sort of what I've heard. But it could have even been Boris who wanted it done. So, I think it's going to come down to Boris, or it's going to come down to Nicky Scarfo, one of the two. All right, how big is the mob's influence in current America, taking into consideration other factions, Mexican cartels, African Americans, Irish, et cetera, that are operating presently? Is low-key under the radar the order of the day now? I'm interested to know your opinion. Look, low-key is much of the mantra. Make money, not headlines. As far as who's controlling ultimately crime in America, it's going to be your cartels, Sinaloa cartel, etc. For the longest time, cartels weren't smart about diversifying money. They had money, but little knowledge, or advanced knowledge at least, on how to hide that money the right way, to put it into legitimate businesses. How to transform poverty-stricken areas into strongholds. Pablo Escobar was really good at that, and he understood that, and he slowly begins to do it. But the problem is Pablo Escobar begins to get too brazen with the government. Some could say he was like John Gotti in the sense that he liked to be seen on a grand scale, but he lasted longer because he had more power than John Gotti could ever hope to have. Escobar had power like nobody's business. In fact, I don't think anyone in the mob ever really had the sort of type of power that Escobar did, other than Toto Rina. Toto Rina was a guy that I think was more powerful. I think he was the most powerful mafia member ever in existence. And they were a lot alike, Pablo Escobar and Toto Rina, because they would kill police, they'd kill politicians, they didn't give a fuck. John Gotti, he couldn't order two mice to stop fucking each other. So, and I don't say that as a slight on John Gotti, but I'm saying in comparison, Toto Rina and Escobar to Gotti, please, you can't even, they should even be in the same sentence. But that's why I said he couldn't order two mice to stop butt fucking. That's just where, so from that perspective, when you look at it in comparison, cartels truly are the ones, as far as I'm concerned. All right, how active is the Sicilian Mafia in South Philadelphia? So I don't want to answer this because really, at the end of the day, if that were the case, why would you be reading and hearing other things? We talk about Philly on this show a lot. Philly makes a lot of headlines all the time. I think the idea of a Sicilian Mafia is maybe factions, maybe a guy or two, but not an entire crew or family. That's ridiculous. Do you really think that Philadelphia will allow anybody to be subversive like that? Nah, not going to happen. Not there. All right, did Greg Scarpa take revenge on the crew member who infected him with AIDS? To my knowledge, no, it didn't happen. Why was Frankie Burke killed? I believe it was over some sort of bad drug deal. That's sort of what I heard. I don't know a lot about Frankie Burke, but that's what I was told. All right, is it true that Sammy Gravano is or was gay? That is what the rumor has been for a long time. There's a lot of people that have speculated that there are photos of him with other men when he was doing beauty school. I don't know why he did beauty school. Maybe he wanted to cut fucking hair. I don't fucking know. Maybe he wanted to be the Liberace of the Mafia. I don't know. But a lot of people that make that rumor up are pro Gotti. So I'm not saying that there isn't any sort of fucking, there isn't sort of any truth to that. I don't know. I had heard rumors that Nick Scabetta, who was his brother-in-law, they had some sort of physical relationship going on, and that's why Gravano killed him. or why Gravano at least went with the idea of killing Nick Scabetta. But I don't know. That's what the rumor has been. But it seems like the people that say that kind of shit are oftentimes pro-Gotti people. So I'm not saying that the Gotti started the rumor. I'm just saying people that are supporting the Gotti side of things typically say that. I've never heard anyone of consequence say it. So let's see. After Castro kicked everybody out of Cuba, why didn't the Mafia open casinos on other islands like the Bahamas or the Dominican Republic? I've always wondered that myself, to be honest with you, because I think, likely it would have been easier to control those governments, to be honest with you. But I think the Bahamas, I could be wrong, but don't the Bahamas fall under British rule? So good luck trying to fucking, tell the Queen to go fuck herself. Dominican Republic, I think those would have been able to, at least it would have been easier to control those territories. But that probably had more to do with the fact that Cuba is 90 miles from Miami. Close to the United States, easy for everybody to get to, a little bit more difficult to get to the Bahamas or the Dominican Republic in those days. And I think that they wanted close proximity. And that's probably why. But also after Cuba, they probably just wanted blood, for everything that happened. They were furious it would happen. So I think the idea of picking up and moving somewhere else probably just didn't make financial sense because they took it in the ass financially after that. So that's probably why. All right. This is somebody from Philadelphia. Not going to say a name here. Okay, and the only reason why I'm saying that is because you won't understand what the fuck this statement is about if I don't. So, all right. So I'm only sharing this because I got permission to share it from my pops, but he totally agrees with you when it comes to Philadelphia. He says it's better to have a small, tight crew that will never turn on each other than to have 200 fake friends always around having to watch your back. He's been in the business, and he's been doing that for the last 50 years. I'm 39, and he's never had a handcuff put on him. So I see what you mean now. Listen, people are entitled to not fucking believe what I say about Philadelphia. They're entitled to say I don't know anybody there. I don't care what anybody's opinion is. It's common sense. If I told you I want you to build a hut and I want you to make it out of straw or out of leaves. All right. Then I tell you I want you to make a hut out of fucking Kevlar. And by the way, there's a storm coming in and there's going to be nasty wind. Which one of them huts is going to stand up? It's going to be the Kevlar hut because it can withstand the pressure. But in both cases of the huts, not to use an analogy here, but it's the easiest way to do it is it also depends on, it's not the material itself. That helps, but it's the structure that is built, the foundation around it. And that's the truth. And that is one of the things that I don't think people understand. You cannot break something. You cannot bend something. You cannot do nothing to anything when its foundation is indestructible. You can't fucking touch it. And that's the thing. You could have 500 guys in a crime family, and then that's great. You got a lot of numbers, a lot of people. But how many of those 500 guys know each other? They fought together on the playground, fought together in fights on the streets, made money together, celebrated birthdays and fucking christenings of kids. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, and I hate to use the reference, but look at the Godfather, the Corleone crime family. They had their issue. Take Fredo out of this for a minute. But they had they were very tight with their siblings. They were a very tight unit together. It was run by people who knew each other their whole life. When you take a crime family and they have grown up together, they're insulated, their kids play with their kids, their cousins hang out with their cousins, it's one big family. And I've always said this, it never is, you name me, and let's not talk John VC and Ron Previty. Let's not talk that fat fuck and all of these other jerk-offs, or fucking Philly and Nettie, that scumbag fuck, or, fucking Tommy Dell, that jerk-off, or any of those other, or Nicky DeCrow. Let's put all those guys to the side. You tell me one fucking guy that grew up with any of the alleged guys that run this shit now. You tell me one of their friends that has ratted, has run to the feds, and said anything. Listen, and I'm going to lay it out like this, right? Even if you're just a fringe associate and you grew up with somebody, but you're not in like that, these guys aren't even talking. And the more I hear fucking these jerk-off gremlin reporters say, well, the day that, somebody from the inside talks, it's all over. Well, that's never going to fucking happen, because nobody that knows anybody there is going to talk like that. It's always going to be some jerk off that comes from some far left fringe bullshit that nobody knows that's going to make up shit. That's the truth. Bent finger fuck Lou Monticello, that piece of shit looks like a fucking tree from The Wizard of Oz. Jerk off, that guy. Didn't know nothing, but he's a name. He wasn't, he didn't grow up with people, and he just spouts nonsense and bullshit, which is why he's a fucking fraud, a fake, and a fucking jerk off, that guy. Looks like the fucking tree from The Wizard of Oz. Oh, you don't like my apples? Go fuck yourself, you prick. But that's the reality. You cannot bend anything that is tight. And listen, I just got to say this, and I'm not going to mention a name. I'm going to tell you something. So I had a situation recently, right? I got a call from somebody from the Philly area, and apparently one of these people on social media wanted my phone number for some reason. I don't think it was like a hater situation, but it was somebody that knew how to find me if they needed to. And this person reached out and called the person to get my number. Now, first of all, I don't even think these two people knew each other. And so rather than this person say, oh, yeah, here's his number, he basically tells the guy to go fuck himself, calls me immediately and says, yeah, I get this message from this guy. What the fuck? And this guy not only protected my privacy, which he didn't have to fucking do. He didn't know me nothing. But he also, in his own way, stood up for me, and he didn't have to do that either. And that's what I'm talking about. That's fucking loyalty to me. And nobody needs to be. I don't show up somewhere and go, okay, you will fucking respect me. You will have loyalty to me. That's something you earn over time and trust. And the fact that this person who made the call to try to get my number and all this, he's connected to somebody else down there, and I don't want to get into the whole thing of it. But he's connected with somebody that's not my fucking friend. And that's the first time I fucking said that publicly. That guy's not my friend. So the guy that called me to let me know what was going on, great guy, stand-up guy. I can't say nothing bad about him. He looked out for me. He didn't have to do it. That's why I like people there. Because not everybody in a certain area is going to act the same. Not everybody's going to have that same loyalty and respect. But everybody that I have ever bumped into, ran across, talked to from that area has nothing but respect. That's how they carry themselves like gentlemen. I can't say it. And this is not a fucking ass-kissing Philadelphia thing. I don't need to do that. But I'm just telling you, there's a huge difference. Huge difference. All right. Did Sam Giancana whack John F. Kennedy? No, absolutely not. That was a CIA, FBI, government, mafia cover-up thing. We've talked about that, but no, Giancana really had nothing to do with that. All right. Do you think Dominic Montiglio was justified in cooperating with the government after he learned that the Gambinos had a hit on him? No. How can you justify making money illegally with all kinds of people, killing people, enjoying doing that, and then telling on everybody because you can't do a day in jail or somebody wants to kill you? They wanted him dead because he took over, he took off as soon as the indictments came down. And that made them think that he was talking because he just didn't want to get indicted. Whether or not he was or he wasn't, you just don't dip out on people like that without causing problems. And you know what he could have done? He could have killed Nino Gaggi. Ratting, there's no excuse. If you're willing to kill somebody on somebody else's orders, do it and go through with it. Why not just step up and kill your fucking uncle? That would have stopped the bullshit right then and there. It didn't matter if Castellano ordered it or not. Imagine that if Dominic Montiglio goes back to New York, he kills Nino Gaggi, and then he disappears. Not soon after Castellano gets killed, John Gotti takes over. You think Gotti's going to go after Montiglio? He's not going to give a fuck at that point. You think he's going to avenge the death of Nino Gaggi? Fuck no, he's not going to do that because Nino was tight with Paul. So if Dominic had just waited, or maybe whacked him, he probably wouldn't have had to rat. He wouldn't have had to become an informant. But he made his choice, and then that's it. Oh, boy. All right, so anybody from South Philly is probably going to hate me after this one. Not literally, but there are those that aren't going to like what I'm about to say, and I'm not going to apologize. And I'm also going to apologize to this person because I don't think that this person asking me this meant it to come off this way, but it rubs me a little sideways, so it's about to get fucking loud. All right, during the Stafford Merlino-Natale wars, why did New York not get involved since the Gambinos were the ones who plays Stanfa as the new boss. And Joey Merlino was a fucking nobody till Stanfa made him a made man. And then he turns on Stanfa. It was said, Michael, I'm not going to talk about Mikey Chang. Fuck you, you asshole, for asking that. He's basically alleging somebody shot somebody. He's using somebody's name, which is nonsense. It's bullshit. I don't want to get into that. Joey wasn't answering anyone. So the whole entire thing here is this guy is saying Joey Merlino was a nothing until Stanfa makes him who he is, blah, blah, blah. Why did New York not get involved? Okay, so first I'm going to answer politely, and then I'm going to, unleash the demon here. Gigante put Scarfo in charge, and then he sees it's a disaster, and he wipes his hands of it. Stanfa arrives out of fucking nowhere, which creates headaches. New York had indictments. They had other issues. And they're not going to intercede in something that's going to get them all caught up in a bunch of nonsense. History essentially just was kind of repeating itself there. So, that being said, as far as your claim that Joey Merlino was a fucking nobody, this is what I want you to do. I want you to find out, or wherever you live, I don't know who you are, where you live, maybe get out of your parents' basement for a second, and I want you to go approach Joey Merlino yourself, and I want you to go say that to his face or to his friends. Who the fuck was John Stanfa, pal? Who was John Stanfa? What was he doing prior to just assuming a boss position, showing up and saying, oh, I'm going to fucking take over? What was he doing? What, did he give Bruno a hand job in the car that night? Bruno got whacked. You tell me what Stanfa was doing. He was hiding in New York like a cunt bitch. Then he gets the order to go down to Philly and take over. And did he fucking earn that? Did he fucking earn that? Not like a coward hump blowjob. He runs to New York and he hides like a bitch. Meanwhile, everybody in Philadelphia is shooting at each other. You tell me one time Joey Merlino ever as a fucking man answered to anybody. It just didn't take fucking Stanfa showing up. Joey Merlino has always been one way and one way only. You're not going to tell him what the fuck to do. That's a fucking man. You tell me one guy he answered to. Just tell me one. So Stanfa tries being boss, and what did he get? He got slapped like a bitch. He got chased like a bitch. He got outthought, outsmarted, outshot, and fuck him. These guys took it to his ass like the fucking men that they are. Stanfa makes non-Italians. Who the fuck does that? And listen, I'm not taking this out on you personally. But to make an assertion about this guy ain't shit or this guy wasn't that till this one and that third, let me ask you a question. You ever been arrested? You ever done anything illegal in your life? You ever walk the streets knowing somebody might just take a shot at you, but you got to keep being seen to keep shit in line? Do you know what that pressure is like? No. So until then, before you make some sort of claim or judgment that anybody was a fucking nobody, look in the mirror and realize, here you are. Here you are, asking me a question about another man's character, whose reputation and intelligence and whose character far outweighs yours by 1 million sperm cells, you fucking jerk-off prick. Take it to him. This goes to anybody. You want to talk this shit, be a fucking man, get in your fucking Ford Festiva, whatever fucking 1992 car you fucking still making fucking payments on, and you go say that to them. All of these people, oh, well, if I saw this guy, I'd say this. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You'd shit your pants like a fucking baby and ask for mommy in a heartbeat. You're probably still on mommy's tit, letting them pay all your fucking bills. I get tired of it. I get tired of people like fucking making a character assassination out of a fucking person that I do fucking know, despite what anybody wants to say, who's a good person, a good guy. You go carry that shit. You guys gonna let me put this in perspective because there's a lot of people that are John Gotti fans. So if you disagree with what John Gotti said, you're gonna in 1982, you're gonna show up to the Ravenite Social Club, knock on the fucking door. Yeah, I want to see John Gotti. He comes out. You're gonna say, personally, I think you got a big mouth, you fucking cocksucker. You're not gonna say that to him. He'd kill you. Done. You wouldn't even believe. You wouldn't have no teeth. Your face would be that you'd be done. So what makes you fucking think that saying that about a guy, you don't know how he came up, you don't know the risk, you know he got shot, right? Do you know that? I guess you're a mob fan. Do you know he got shot? You know what that's like to see like one of your best friends get shot and killed right in fucking front of you? Or you got to deal with fucking back pain from getting shot the rest of your fucking life? Do you know what that's like? So at the end of the day, all I'm going to say is, if you want to character assassinate somebody, be a fucking man, be a fucking adult. And I apologize to the person who asked this. It's not all about you here, because there's other people that say this stupid shit all the time. As my friend down in South Philly tells me all the time, be a fucking man. If you want to ask me a question about another man, go do it your goddamn self. Because there's a lot of that goes around. Oh, is this one talking about me? This one's talking about me? I don't know. Why don't you be a fucking man? Get up off your ass. Don't ask fucking me. Be a man. Go knock on the guy's fucking door and say, hey, listen, have you been saying anything about me? When did we stop doing that in this country? Social media is one of the biggest fucking problems with this shit. Everybody's got a fucking mouth, and they run it. But they don't run it to your face because they're weak. So, if you're going to try to character assassination somebody, and you're going to say, oh, this guy was nothing till this guy, fuck out of here. You don't know a goddamn thing about Joey Merlino. You don't know a goddamn thing about the mob. You don't know a goddamn thing about the streets. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm just, listen, a lot of people are going to say to me now, oh, there he goes, defending Joey Merlino. Blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. Defending a friend, and two, be a fucking man. You want to go say that he's a fucking nothing and a fucking nobody? Then go say it to their face. You're not going to do that. None of you will. None of you will. Defend your rats, love your rats, sleep with your rats, write love letters to the rats. Because you think at the end of the day, you defending a rat, he's going to help you if you got a problem? No. Not at all. The minute you mention a crime, they're going to go run and tell the motherfucking feds anyway. So, it's a simple task. You want to character assassinate a guy, you want to say a guy's a fucking nothing, go say it to his face. In fact, send me your address. I'll buy you a first-class ticket from Zimbabwe or wherever the fuck it is you're from. Probably fucking Oklahoma, where the tooth count is 1. And I will fly you out here, and I will introduce you to that person. And I will watch as you don't say shit to them like that because you're a pussy. And that is not directed at the person who asked the question. That is directed at everybody that keeps talking shit. I'll buy fucking 10,000 fucking airline tickets if you guys think you're that tough. Go ahead. You won't. You won't, because the minute you see the eyes, that's it. You're going to shit yourself, and you're going to run. Oh, feds, police, please fucking help me. This guy looked at me sideways. Be a man. That's it. Be a man. Ugh. All right. Were all the main guys who paid their way into the Profaci crime family kicked out once Profaci died, or were they just allowed to stay in the family? Some stayed, some got chased. Okay, can you explain the timeline behind the Wild Bill situation? You suggested that Greg Scarpa had something to do with it, but he did die in 1994. Cotolo was hit in 99. Was this leftover animosity from the Second Colombo War? I've always heard it was Persco Sr., Ali Boy Persco, and Jackie DeRoss. So what I meant by that was not specifically that Greg Scarpa was the one that was responsible for the hit on Wild Bill. You have to understand the one thing that Scarpa had been doing was pumping information into Carmine Persco Sr. that wasn't true. He had been doing that for a long fucking time. And like I said, I had heard that at one point Scarpa had fed him information about Wild Bill. And listen, if you lay the seeds, because ultimately what Greg Scarpa really wanted to do was be an informant and take over the crime family for himself. That's what he wanted. And he said a lot of things about a lot of guys. Now, is that ultimately what led to Cotolo getting killed? No, that wasn't the all to end all. There were other things that were going on in the streets. But I had heard repeatedly that Scarpa had sort of inserted names with desires to take over. And so once you plant that seed, it sort of sticks there. And then obviously as Persco tries to sort of keep a firm grip on his crime family, things start to change. So, no, he was not responsible for the whole entire thing, but he put some thoughts into some heads, and so did some other people. All right. If Sonny Francis was as respected as everybody else says he was, how come he wasn't given the title of boss after Colombo was shot while he was in prison? The Bonanos gave Rusty Rastelli the title while he was in prison, so why not? Why is it any different with Francis, who is arguably more respected than Rastelli? Obviously, he wasn't more respected than Rastelli because Rastelli wouldn't have been given the post if that were the case. I think a lot of it was Francis was doing a ton of fucking time. It doesn't make sense to make somebody the boss who's been in prison more than they've been on the streets. And I'm just being honest with you. Would Francis have been a good boss? Absolutely 100%. But at the time, there was political jockeying. Obviously, Rastelli was going to take over, but he ends up in the can, and then it's given to Joey Merlino. And we know what Joey Merlino did. So I don't think it had to do with respect as much. It had to do with sometimes it's not respect. It's how well you're liked and perceived by other people. And if you look at Francis and his career in crime, he spent more time in the can than he stayed on the streets. It doesn't mean that he was not respected. He was insanely feared and respected. But at the end of the day, you got to use somebody that's at least going to have some sort of idea or some light at the end of the fucking tunnel that they're going to get out of prison. So there you go. Have you read okay. All right. So I think I'm coming up on my last two questions here. So here we go. Just curious on how the loan shark percentages work. If somebody loaned $50K at 2 points, that would mean the person would have to come up with 2% of the $50K, which would be $1,000 every week. Look, it just depends on the terms. It depends on the amounts. In some cases, the VIG here on most days is like 9%. Sometimes it's as low as 6%, depending on the person, the terms, and the limits. Always remember, if you borrow, you're going to pay the VIG every week, every 2 weeks, but you still owe the principal. So if you're paying, $1,000 on your loan, you still fucking owe the loan. And the point, the points is always the percentage. The bigger the loan, the bigger the VIG. The longer, you can squeeze somebody, the more money you're going to make. I tend to, at least in the past, when I may or may not have been involved in something like that, I would always cut people a lower percentage because I want them to continue coming back, keep borrowing money. But the problem is, and I don't know if you're trying to loan shark or not, but do yourself a favor. Don't loan to junkies. That's number one. Don't loan to anybody that does drugs. And don't loan to the fucks who cannot manage money. And also beware of the gypsies. Some people might not know what I'm talking about. That's the term that I use. And I call them that because they will borrow low and then they always pay on time. Then they borrow a little more, and they're going to naturally pay a higher tax for a longer period, and then they pay, and everything's great. Then they come to you and they want to juice you, and they're going to take a larger amount, and then they just fucking disappear like nothing. Always know where the person is, where they work, where they frequent, who they hang out with, and you'll never have no problems. Plain and simple. All right, last question of the day, and this is one of my favorite ones I've ever gotten because I've never gotten it before. I've never read the book The Prince. Why is it so popular amongst gangsters? First of all, The Prince was written by Niccolo Machiavelli, who was an Italian philosopher. If you have ever read The Prince, this is going to be a regurgitation of everything you've ever heard. But The Prince really details how to deal with people if you're a dignitary like a prince. One of the foundations, and first of all, if you were ever looking for the platform of the Mafia and where they got their structure and how they do things, read The Prince, because that's where it came from. And I'll give you, Machiavelli once said in The Prince, is it better to be a lion or a fox, better to be loved or feared? That's where that line comes from. Is it better to be loved or feared? And one of the things that Machiavelli really understood was, and I'm going to break this down in organized crime terms for you, okay? So, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it sitting in front of me, but one of the things that Machiavelli said as the prince is that it is better, if you are going to have to injure a man, it's better to kill him than to give him the satisfaction, so to speak, of revenge. You have to hurt a guy so badly that whatever he could do in revenge could never touch you. So it simply means if you got to get at somebody, fucking kill them. And if you're not going to fucking kill them, make sure that whatever they do in return to you or in retribution to you cannot affect you. It's sayings like that. One of the other things that he talked a lot about is how to deal with men underneath of you. And one of the concepts that Machiavelli came out with was, when you are we'll use a boss, because he's talking about a prince and then all his dignitaries under there, but let's look at the framework of an organized crime family. If you're a boss, you want the men underneath of you never to have too much. If they have too much, then they will overthrow you. But if you give them just enough to make them happy, then they will stay with you and they will be loyal to you, especially in terms of if you see a boss that lives in a small house, he allows guys to earn. He allows guys to make money. He's not greedy. then he will not be overthrown by his own people. But the minute he lives in the fancy house, the fancy car, the broads, the booze, the bars, everything like that, and then he wants to nickel and dime fuck you out of your money, that's when people rat. That's when people will overthrow you. So it's better to give everyone just enough, have them want just a little bit more, because they will always be devoted to you and they will always be loyal to you. So in this instance, you have a boss, he lets his guys earn 12%. All right, they're not hurting for anything, but they also know that they'll be given more down the line. It's gonna top off at a certain level, and they know that. But if you give them everything, then they're going to take everything. If you give them just enough to survive and a little bit more, and they're happy and content, then they will love you, they will honor you, and they will never disrespect you. So it's things like that. If you haven't read The Prince, it's a great book. I started reading that when I was 14 years old. And some of the things, it talks about retribution, when to strike, when to be heavy-handed with your men, when to punish them, how to punish them, why to punish them, and all the ramifications of everything you can do. And if you truly, truly, truly read the book and you think of the Mafia and how it's structured in the history, then you're going to understand where all these rules and where all these parameters came from. It comes directly from The Prince, and that is why everyone reads it, because it is a business manual for running organized crime. Can't say it any better than that. It's one of my favorite books. It really is. You don't have to get like a Cliff Notes book. Go out and just buy the book. You can get it on Amazon for like $5, $6, $7. I think you could probably even read it online or pick out excerpts from it. But one of the other arguments he had is it better to be feared or better to be loved? And obviously we could talk about The Bronx Tale and all these other movies and shit like that have used this line. But it was Machiavelli who said it was better to be feared, because fear always lasts longer than love. You can't have it either way. You can't be loved and feared. It's either one or the other. If you're loved, you can be killed. If you're feared, you won't. And so he makes different arguments based on politics and Roman times. And so it's a great book. If you haven't had the opportunity to read it, just if you wanted to understand how mob guys think, that's the book for you. All right, all that being said, I am going to take a short break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about Fear City, the Mafia documentary that was recently on Netflix. And I'm sure I'm going to scream a lot. So stay tuned. And welcome back to Mob Talk Radio. We are talking about Fear City, the New York Mafia, or the Mafia versus New York City. So here's the thing. I saw previews of it. I tried to go into it with no preconceived notion, even though I saw rats were in it. But it really, I kind of knew from the beginning that it was going to be centered on the commission case and pretty much how the FBI brought down the commission. If you are a mob genre fan, that wouldn't have been news to you. They kind of filmed it like a 70s sleazy fucking porn and sort of made the FBI heroes, which I thought was repulsive. And they seemed to really focus on the guy who was the guy who would sneak into the fucking restaurant and place the bug. The guy who would place the bug inside the fucking Tony Duck's car. From that perspective, I found it interesting just to see how the FBI did it. But everything else just, to me, was just regurgitated, repackaged bullshit. It was factual, but it was just regurgitated facts that we've seen in every single mob documentary. And of course, as usual, I wrote some notes about it because there were some things that I thought were intriguing, right? So I'm not going to totally dog it, but it was a shit show from every other perspective. From the perspective of, like I said, the FBI bug and everything, that was kind of interesting to see how they did that. But they talk about the RICO law and how they wanted to use the RICO law Robert Blakely, who made the RICO law, and how they wanted to use it. So from that perspective, and I already knew how the RICO law kind of came into existence and sort of how they were going to use that. I really obviously, I think that there were a couple of things that were problems. First of all, you're never going to get Rudy Giuliani to be in a documentary like that unless you're pro FBI. That's just the truth. The thing that Rudy Giuliani does not tell you, and obviously I think that guy's a repulsive Nosferatu-looking fuck. Looks like a goddamn vampire, that guy. His closet is not clean either. Obviously, we've seen in the last few years, Rudy Giuliani had a lot of closets or a lot of skeletons in his fucking closet. But one of the things that Rudy Giuliani doesn't tell you, because Rudy Giuliani makes this sort of blanket statement that the mafia was bad, they're all criminals, horrible people, they should all be in prison. Well, his father was a gangster. He doesn't tell anybody that. His father did time in Sing Sing for armed robbery, for fucking assault and battery, mafia type of shit, right? His father worked with Leo Diavanzo, which that name probably will sound familiar to you, at least Diavanzo would, because obviously we know Drita from fucking Mob Wives is married to Lee Diavanzo, okay? So Leo was a bookmaker, a leg breaker, and when Rudy's father, Harry, gets out of fucking federal prison in Sing Sing, just out of regular prison in Sing Sing, he ends up going to work directly for Leo, who was a huge bookmaker and gangster in Brooklyn. So Rudy Giuliani to say that all mob guys are this, that, and the third, well, how did his father make money? Where'd that money come from? His father wasn't an upstanding fucking citizen. So if you want to stand on your fucking pulpit and you want to claim you're the greatest thing since sliced fucking bread, at least admit that your father was a gangster, that your uncle was a gangster, your cousins are all gangsters. So there's a hypocrisy there, because the same people he says this should be in prison, should be on death row and all this fucking nonsense, well, put his father in that list too if you're going to take that stance. That was the first sort of issue I had with it. The second issue I sort of had with things is the way that the government fucked Tony Salerno. Tony Salerno was not the boss of the fucking Genovese crime family when he was indicted as head of the family. They knew that. The government knew that Vinny the Chin was at the time the boss of the family, because Tony Salerno was picked up on a wiretap saying they were showing a list of inducted newly members from every crime family. Tony Salerno goes, I don't even know who the fuck these people are. Send it up to the boss. He'll figure it out. So the government knew that Tony Salerno was not the fucking boss of the crime family. And yet they indict him full well knowing that they had suppressed that information. And so they were nice enough to give Tony Salerno's fucking lawyer a minute and a half to explain that. This was a very pro-FBI documentary. I just think that if you're going to make a documentary, I think you ought to cover both sides of the fucking coin and then just let the fucking audience decide for themselves what's right, what's wrong, what fits and what doesn't. This was like a recruiting film for the fucking FBI. The other thing, they interview Lynn DeVecchio, who was a piece of shit, garbage pail, horribly corrupt FBI agent during the Vic Orena trial. 19 defendants in that fucking trial had their convictions either overturned or their cases thrown out of court because Lynn DeVecchio was a slime bag piece of shit. They did indict Lynn DeVecchio into murders because he gave names of informants to Greg Scarpa, who then in turn fucking killed people. So the idea that they're going to take any sort of prudence, DeVecchio's word for anything is garbage to me. You wanna talk to Bruce Mao and some of these other agents. That's one thing. They're going to have their perspective, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you give Lynn DeVecchio a fucking platform like that, when he's a disgraced FBI agent who did illegal shit his whole entire career with Greg Scarpa, and you're going to take that as like gospel, there's something wrong with that. I'm not going to kick Michael Franzese in the balls this week because I don't think he really said anything other than, the one thing he didn't do in this documentary, which he's done in every fucking documentary, is he's turned water into wine like fucking Jesus in every documentary and tried to make himself out to be more than what he was. Always never admitting that he's a fucking rat, because he is. He testified against Norby Walters, got a sentence reduction. And listen, for people who want to debate me, because I always get people debating me on this, let me ask you something. If he was making billions of dollars a year like he claims, all right, why did he only get 10 years in prison? Why would they not throw him away for the rest of his life? Think about that for just 1 second. Here, I'll be quiet. Okay, did you think about it? All right. So he testified against Norby Walters, who was a racketeer. He was a guy that sort of did stuff for like the Jackson 5. He was shaking them down, Dionne Warwick, and a bunch of other musical acts. And he Michael Francis long considered Norby Walters his uncle, somebody he cared about very deeply, but it didn't stop him from ratting him out and testifying against him, did it? And what happened? Norby Walters got time. All right. Then to trump that even further, Michael gives the names, ranks, dates in the hierarchies of every mob family. He's done that. He admitted to that. I have articles where he admits to that. And he got a sentence reduction for that as well. So don't tell me that he didn't fucking snitch. Just because he didn't snitch on a guy with the fucking Italian last name doesn't mean he's not a snitch. His claim is, I never fucking ratted anybody out. I never testified against my own people. Yeah, but you're still a fucking rat because you testified against somebody who got fucking time. Then to double down on it, Michael Francis testified against a fucking janitor in his father's office. What the fuck are you going to do that for? He's a fucking janitor. Is he some fucking Crips accountant? Is he some fucking jewel thief? A fucking janitor. So, from that perspective, Michael Francis is a rat and he's a liar. He changes his story much like other informants do. Was he as prolific an informant as some other people? No. Did he testify against Italians in court? No. But he's still a fucking rat. He got a sentence reduction. Hello, 10 years for everything that he was doing. So there's that. Also, I think, looking at the documentary, I do, like I said, the positive for me was it was interesting to see how the FBI set people up, Jerry Lang and all these other guys, and Tony Ducks, and that was interesting to me. But it's not something I didn't know. There were a lot of wiretaps that were fake. And people are going to believe that those are real. There were a couple that were real, but there are a lot of, and I'm just going to say this, it sounded like Gene Morello doing them. I don't know if it was him, but the high-pitched, cracked tweaker, sounded a lot like Gene Morello to me. But there were a lot of, like the video surveillance was, like the sequence of Angelo Ruggiero was fake. People are going to think that's real. That was fake. There were a lot of wiretaps that weren't real either. There are some that were, and it's very definitive which ones were real, which ones were fake. And so that was sort of another issue I had with it. But I thought from a historical aspect, I think that they covered it from the government's angle very well. I certainly wasn't expecting to watch a documentary that was like a 70s fucking crime caper or a 70s porn film. That's sort of the gist. I mean, that's a creative way of doing things, but I just don't think, I think what they lost, they had a very great opportunity in three hours and 5 minutes, whatever it was, to tell some very interesting stories. And I think the fact that they leave out what was going on, it was a little bit too pro. Excuse me. It was a little just too pro FBI for me. But then again, they're not going to get some of the people on there that they got. Now, why Curtis Sliwa was even on this documentary makes no sense, because he's sitting in a barber chair. Oh, my father got shaken down. My uncle got shaken down. That's why I don't like him. Well, first of all, he offers no fucking relevance whatsoever to this documentary. Curtis Sliwa, other than looking like a fucking pedophile with that fucking stupid beret on his fucking head, is a guy that has lied his entire life. He has lied about saving minorities. He has lied about saving people, and he has admitted to lying to sort of buffer and to make the Guardian Angels look more than they really were. Anything he could do to get his name in the fucking press, he would do. And unfortunately, organized crime probably did himself a favor by shooting him in the fucking dick in the fucking belly, because it just gave him a platform to spew nonsense and absurdity. And I don't know Curtis Sliwa. I really probably would not ever want to have a conversation with him. He's a jerk off. He's a big mouth. He acts like a tough guy, but he's not. But he's also a liar too. And that's my thing. If you're going to bring a guy in to talk about the mafia, bring somebody in that has, like, is going to tell stories. Oh, in the 1940s, I remember hearing. To me, that's interesting. Him sitting in a barber chair looking like a fucking pruned fucking peach, blaming the Mafia for shaking down his uncle and his father and all this and that. How the fuck does that correlate to the Guardian Angels? It doesn't. And I'm really surprised he didn't take any pot shots at John Gotti Jr. I thought for sure he was going to run his mouth about that, but he didn't. But all that being said, in the totality, and you guys know what I'm getting ready to go to here in a second. I'm going to talk about it. But I just think from a historical aspect, regurgitating the same facts a different way is fine with me. I just think that it was overhyped. And I've seen a lot of people are saying they didn't tell me anything I didn't know. And then everybody seems to have the same problems, is just that they didn't like the fact that it was so pro FBI. They felt like they should have seen sort of more two sides to the coin. Well, that's obviously, like I told you, they're not going to get Rudy Giuliani involved unless it's pro kiss his ass, pro FBI. It's like a cheesy porn version of a fucking FBI recruiting video. Join the FBI, where you two can have a 70s porn handlebar mustache and insert your dick into a TV. Whatever it is that they want to do. Yeah, you too can be a super spy and plant bugs in cars. And it's just, from that perspective, I just kind of like, all right, I've seen this, I've heard this before. Like I said, the bottom line is it is the same story we've heard in 1,000 other documentaries, just shot like a cheesy porn film, All right, so I'm going to get to the portion of this where I'm just going to make a couple of statements. First of all, they continue to hire rats to talk. I'm not being specific here because it's in every documentary. But anybody that claims to make $1 million a month is lying to you. That's bullshit. It is about the commission case. Any individual that they may have interviewed in that show other than an FBI agent would have been, fucking not involved? That's for starters. Then people are going to want to make crazy claims. They knew this one, they knew that one. Well, you were 14 at the time this one got killed, so how are you involved in the Mafia then, you prick? Be careful what you believe. Now, from the standpoint of a documentary, is it helpful to interview a fucking rat? Well, that's all they can get, because nobody of any sort of class, anybody that has any dignity or morals, respect, or honor is going to talk to them about that. That's number one. But I think that people have a tendency to believe whatever shit is served to them on a platter, especially if that platter is golden. And I just wish, and I've said this a lot in my life, and I will continue to say it, do yourself a favor. Don't listen to what is said. Investigate it for yourself. It takes 10 minutes to do research. 10 minutes. And you will find that 95% of the shit that you're being fed is not accurate. What I do here is I give you the truth. Whether you like it or not, whether you love me or you hate me, I'm going to give you the truth. And I'm not going to base it on, I heard this, I heard that. I'm going to base it on what was said in court. Oh, here's a transcript. And so that's my point, is that it's entertainment. I'm glad people like the documentary. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad if you enjoyed it. But like I told you, I'm a stickler for fucking the truth. I'm a stickler for, I think you just play things down the middle and you let people decide for themselves. I can sit here all day long and I can rant, scream, and rave like a fucking lunatic to you. But I'm not going to get anywhere unless I present you a fact. And if I wasn't giving you facts, believe me, nobody would be listening to my show. I wouldn't have over 2 million listeners a month. If I was shit at what I did and I told you nonsense. I tell you shit nobody knows. I don't regurgitate facts, and if I do, I tell you I do. If I'm wrong about something, I admit that I'm wrong about something. But let's try these fucks once, see if they'll ever do that. And it's like I said last week, none of them will have me on their show. Not that I would ever sit down with a rat in a second, because I won't. But they're not going to have me on those shows because it's not popular. Because I'm not going to go on there and lie. I'm not going to go on there and fabricate stories about myself to make myself seem more relevant. I'm going to go on there and I'm going to punch them in the mouth verbally nonstop. I'm going to present them with facts, and facts don't sell. Facts don't sell. But if I wanted to pretend like I'm half of these fucking rats that do this shit, maybe I should start lying and saying, yeah, in 1994, I killed 2 people on orders of Carmine Persco's ghost. Fuck out of here. Or I spoon-fed Ron Previty hot dogs as he was dying. And he said to me, Jeff, Philadelphia is now yours. Fuck out of here. And that's the point I'm trying to make to you guys and girls, because we have girls that listen too. Stop believing the bullshit. If you want to listen to rats, oh, that's fine. I don't care if you enjoy the Johnny and Jerkoff show, whatever it is, or if you enjoy Frank Colada, Cup of Colada, which has the stupidest fucking theme song I've ever heard in my fucking life. Makes me want to puke in my suit. But if you enjoy that kind of stuff, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think nothing bad of you if that's what you choose to put into your fucking head. But the only thing I ever ask is that if you are going to do that, then have the fucking courtesy of just checking whether it's true. And you're going to find that 99.9% of the time it's not. And that's the problem. You're believing people that lie. There are other people, Mikey Scars, who did one interview and disappeared. I'm done. I don't need to do this. He's still a rat, but he's got nothing to gain from it. Joey Merlino, you don't see him doing this shit. Then there are others. You don't see them doing it. It just go away. You're not relevant. You were relevant for 4 years. Go the fuck away. And I think that there's a big disconnect on what a real gangster is. The same people that fucking watch, and then I'm going to shut the fuck up. The same people that watch Goodfellas and get depressed when Henry Hill rats are the same fucking ones that'll do anything for a fucking rat to talk to them. And I don't get it. They're not coming. Why telling they're telling on their friends. The fact that you fucking bemoan Henry Hill, oh, what a piece of shit, man. Goodfellas fucking ruined my fucking whole mood today seeing the end of it. Because I'll tell you the truth, when I watch Goodfellas, guess what? I watch 98% of the movie. The minute Henry Hill turns, I turn the fucking movie off. I can't stand it. It makes me sick. I enjoy everything prior to that. That movie's all bullshit anyway, but I enjoy it, but I can't watch the ending. Just like I can't stomach Casino because of Sharon Stone's fucking character. It drives me fucking nuts. I don't even why I will fast forward through every scene that Sharon Stone is in because it takes away my fucking mojo. Then I go back to watch Joe Pesci getting cracked with bats and buried. But do yourself a favor. It doesn't take much to investigate it. There's enough information and facts on fucking social media that's true that you can find out about these informants. And listen, I'm not against anybody, rat or no rat, making money. They want to make money lying, that's fine. But they're only making money because of you. Because you subscribe to the bullshit. You know, and none of them, with maybe the exception of one or two people, has ever been anything of consequence. Nickel and dime this, nickel and dime that. Most of these guys are supported and upheld, not because they're big tough guys, not because they're high earners and big money makers. It's because the fuckers around them kept them alive when everyone else wanted to kill them. Because the name that represented the brand was feared, not because they were some fucking magical tough guy. There's a big difference between Roy DeMeo and some of these jerk-offs that are doing shit. Roy DeMeo, people feared. Didn't matter if he was with the Gambinos. They knew he'd kill them. And I'm not saying that everybody that's a rat wasn't tough or at some point weren't killers. I'm not going to take that away from them. But at the same time, use common sense. Use common sense. Do the math on the timeline. Listen to the shows. Write down little key facts because I guarantee you're gonna recognize something right away. The number changes. Oh, I made $50,000 a week. Oh, I made $1 million a month. Oh, I made $1 million a year. Oh, I was selling 1 kilo, then 10 tons. I mean, it changes weekly. And if you can't keep the same fucking narrative, you're first of all a shitty storyteller, and you're a fucking disgrace to yourself because you're lying. Doesn't matter. So what? Okay, if you was in the street, you sold 1 kilo or 20. What's the difference? You're still selling drugs. What does it matter what the number is? Okay, you killed 5. Okay, you killed 10. How do you go from killing 1, which is fucking reality, killing 1 person, to 20? How do you, and then like 6 months later, oh, it was 15. Oh, it was, they alleged. Anytime anybody says to you, the police allege, the feds allege, they're lying to you. The feds will have you believe that Mickey Mouse is a fucking serial killer with fucking staph infections on his prick and he's giving it to Goofy and Donald Duck and whoever the fuck else. If they think you'll palate that and you'll swallow that, you'll believe that. But that's what they do. They'll use what the feds allege to make their fucking criminal profile bigger. Listen, anybody that kills anybody anyway is a tough guy. You got to be a tough individual to kill somebody. Whether it's 1, 2, or 12 doesn't fucking matter to me. The same guy sitting at the end of the bar, banging on the bar with a steel dildo saying, I'm going to kill the next motherfucker who walks in here. I want to take his word for it because he's killed before. Take the same guy with steel dildo, banging it on the end of the fucking bar saying, I've killed 10 and I'll kill one more. Who's more severe? Neither one, because both are capable of it. The number don't impress me. You know, the number doesn't impress me. And so, to round all of this out, I thought the documentary was okay. I didn't learn anything. I think it was the same information regurgitated. I think the minute that you allow informants to tell a narrative that has nothing to do with what you're fucking talking about, what the fuck did the commission have anything to do with those two? It didn't. It was just they think that bringing in somebody like that brings them some sort of credibility. And if they just did fucking research, they'd find out really quickly they're not credible and have no credibility. They have no respect. They're not feared. They're pitied. They're pariahs. This narrative that all of them tell, all of them, because this isn't one, this is like a bunch of them. They don't go into the neighborhoods. They don't. They can tell you they do. They don't. Because if they did, believe me, there'd be problems. And there have been problems historically when they do this. There are things that happen. And so while you're allowed to listen to whatever you want, take into whatever you want, you can believe what you want, you can hate me and love them, I really don't care at the end of the day. But I just think, you know, if you're going to spout their narratives, because they're politicians, these guys, you know, if you're going to spout their narratives, at least be willing to investigate it for yourself and then call them on that. And that's what I would do if I was on those shows. I'd call them on it. I'd have a sheet of paper. Okay, that's a lie. I can prove it right now. Here's court transcript 13-4 AC, fuck you in the ass till Tuesday. You know, either their memory is shit and they can't remember a fucking thing, or there are things that they try to mitigate to make themselves look innocent. Because at the bottom line, I don't care who you fucking are. Doesn't matter to me what you've done, what your standing was, what your rank, what your position, where you were at in the family, how much money you fucking made. The bottom line is they tell on other people because they're scared, they're weak, they're soft, and they don't want to go to fucking jail. Do you think that the feds took jail off the table and said, well, you know, listen here, you know, we'll give you a 3-year deal. Don't worry about everything else. You plead out to a 3-year deal. They're going to take that. They're not going to say a word. The minute you bring up, hey, you're going to do 25 years to life for this, they can't fucking unclench their asshole untight enough to pull out the chapstick and put it on their mouth and start kissing ass. That's what they do because they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to go. If you're a killer and you're a criminal, why not just kill somebody? What do you got to lose then? Nothing. You got nothing to lose. Just kill them. They'll be gone. You won't have to worry about it. They can't do jail. And that's the big issue that I have with it. They're not doing it because they found God. They're not doing it because they had suddenly a moment of clarity where everything that they've ever done makes them feel bad and they want to do penance. Because if you believe in God, heaven and hell and all that nonsense, they're going to go to fucking hell anyway. If you believe in all that stuff. There's no amount of purgatory time you can do for that. And so the reality is at the end of the day for me, and it always will be, is that it's jail. They just can't do jail. And they're not having a moment of clarity and a come to Jesus meeting where they're like, oh, I've lived such a horrible fucking life. It's not that. It's not that at all. It's, I don't want to go to jail. And then they cry in jail. And so to further that, and I'm not going to tell you when this is going to be, I have something that I am going to bring out publicly and show you how much of a liar people are. I have a audio tape of a court hearing that I'm going to play. And you're going to see what I'm talking about, of how much they lie and how much they make up shit. And I don't know when that's going to come, maybe in the book. But that is going to come because I want people to understand that the people that you continue to follow, the people you continue to worship for some fucking sick reason are full of shit. So, tail end of this, to end it all here, documentary was okay. It wasn't great. It was just the same shit regurgitated, but I would love to see somebody do a documentary that just called it, here's A side, here's B side, you guys figure it out. And make your own assertions. This documentary didn't leave you to like make your own sort of conclusion. It was sort of spoon-fed federal agent bullshit. The only thing that didn't surprise me is they didn't have more rats. Maybe they couldn't afford them. I don't know. All right, so all that being said, that's going to be all for today. We will be back next week with an all-new show, and hopefully by next week I'll have more to digest as far as what platform we're moving to and sort of the thing. I just got to be a little more patient with what's going on behind the scenes. All that being said, send your threats, your hate mail to the usual places. When we do a Q&A, I'll announce it over on Facebook. Just type in Mob Talk Radio. Give a follow, like the page if you want, or hate the page. Don't give a fuck. But that's where you're going to be able to get some information. And there are links to the blog over on the Facebook page. And two, if I don't know you on Instagram, I'm not fucking letting you in. That's just my rule. If I don't know you, I'm just not doing it. So for people who continue to keep fucking request to follow me on Instagram, if I don't know you or we haven't talked or I don't know of you, I'm just declining. It's not because you're a jerk and I don't want to talk to you. It's just that I like to control my own narrative and I like to control who I allow myself to be around. Because the haters come in all shapes, forms, sizes, and psychopaths, and I'm done dealing with it. So that's just the way it's going to be. All right, all that being said, everybody, wear your fucking mask in public, will you please? I don't care if you believe in it or not. Just do yourself a favor, because if you don't, it just starts shit. And just be safe. And we'll see everybody next week.